The iPhone Air is Apple's thinnest phone to date, making it the most unique phone in Apple's iPhone 17 lineup. For a long time, I've wanted bigger and bigger phones, but for the last few years, I've been finding myself tired of carrying giant Pro Max bricks in my pockets. Could the iPhone Air actually be the solution to this problem? Well, I spent the last 10 days with it, including a nice little domestic trip to see how this phone could handle being my main device. And here's how it went. On paper, the iPhone Air is both larger than the iPhone 17 Pro in terms of screen size, but also lighter than the iPhone 17. It basically looks like those iPhone 7 fan renders that were made like 10 years ago. But that's great, right? Problem solved. iPhone Air is the solution I'm looking for, right? Okay, if you look at the iPhone 17 Pro in comparison, your eyes start to wander and notice the things that start to stand out. Something just doesn't belong. That's because to make a phone this thin and light, the typical iPhone buttons are now thinner to accommodate this smaller frame. The Air only has one camera on the back instead of 2 or 3 like the regular iPhone 17 or 17 Pro. It only uses eSIMs, so the physical SIM card tray is removed for every country, and there's only one speaker on the top of the device instead of a second one on the bottom with it. Apple did this to squeeze as large of a battery that they possibly can into the iPhone Air. But the battery is still smaller than all the other iPhones because, well, look at it. The body is just so thin. There's way less space for them to work with in something this tiny. But what you get for all of those compromises is something that looks and feels so light, sits great in the hand, and just almost feels fake, like it's a dummy phone or something. So how does all of this affect the core iPhone experience? Well, the single speaker is, how can I put this nicely? In everyday usage, you'd probably be okay. Like, you probably don't need the best audio in the bathroom with the sound bouncing off the walls, but the speaker itself it's not the best. The moment you compare it to the dual speakers of the iPhone 17 Pro, it makes the Air speakers sound tinny, and it doesn't get anywhere near as loud at max volume either. When on speakerphone, it does get loud enough to hear it. Like if you decide to share what someone is saying from your phone with another person in the room, you can definitely do that. But you can definitely tell that this thing is speaker-wise on the weaker end. Watching content on it with the speaker is okay, but honestly, if you're a reasonable human being, you'd probably be using wireless earbuds with your phone when you're playing audio that loud anyway. But it's more about having the option to use the speaker when needed. But for this device, the iPhone Air's single speaker just isn't great. So if you look at the iPhone 17, the 17 Pro, and the 17 Pro Max, on paper and when actually holding them and using them in your hand, they are both thicker and physically way more than the iPhone Air. The iPhone Air isn't significantly lighter than the standard iPhone 17 by any means, but its screen is larger and that weight is distributed across the larger surface, so it's very light for its screen size. But I think this omits some pretty important details too. Most of us do not use our phones nude. We slap screen protectors, cases, and accessories on the back. All of these things increase the weight and size of our devices. Let's be real here. How much of us honestly can say that when we're checking out a brand new phone in a store, holding it in our hands, we think to ourselves, I wonder how thick this phone would get with the case or how heavy it would get with the case? Probably never. But when I hold the iPhone Air, it feels sometimes uncomfortably thin or light because I'm just not used to phones being this thin. I'm sure it's just an adjustment period, but also because back in August, I switched to a Pixel 9 Pro XL, which by itself is already a large phone, but I didn't think it was heavy by any means. But the moment I slapped on all my different accessories on this thing, this phone felt heavy in my pocket and got a little larger. It was noticeable in my hands and in my pockets. And looking up the Pixel 9 Pro XL's weight, it weighs roughly what the iPhone 17 Pro Max weighs. So I probably wouldn't want that sitting in my pocket as my daily driver either. Yet with the iPhone Air, it's lightweight, has a screen size that sits between the Pro and the Pro Max, and once you do slap on those accessories, it weighs and feels like a regular phone without accessories. Of course, that still heavily depends on the accessory that you select, but you have that option. And that's kind of the beauty of this. The comfortability of carrying something lighter with just the essentials, or slapping a couple of things on and making it weigh just like a regular phone that doesn't have accessories. But whether you got an iPhone 17, a 17 Pro, or an Air, you'll probably want something to protect it, but also makes your life easier too. And that's with today's sponsor, Torras, and their O-Stand series of cases for the iPhone 17 series. These cases protect your phones from scuffs and drops, but also provide so much more functionality thanks to the O-stand built into the back of the case. This turns it into a pocket tripod with so many more capabilities. It can be used as a grip to take center stage selfies. It can be placed on a table so you can dual record from the front and rear cameras at the same time. And you can use it to stabilize your phone for video calls. But see, the O-stand is also a super strong magnetic ring, meaning you can place your phone against metal surfaces and it just sticks to it to get even more shots or to quickly glance at the screen. And of course, you can still attach MagSafe accessories to it too. The O-Stand series of cases come in a bunch of different colors, but also different variants. The O-Stand Air series of cases have this airbag-like bumper that softens drops and has grippy sides so the phone doesn't slip out of your hands in the first place. Then there's the O-Stand silicone case. These provide soft touch silicone that's easy to clean, and it doesn't show fingerprints and still has a nice soft velvety interior for a premium feel. It's a nice looking phone case that's made to fit your aesthetic. Using the O-Stand cases really show you how nice they are and just makes gripping your phone a little bit more comfortable and versatile. So if you're interested in the Torras O-Stand Air or O-Stand Silicone, check out the link in the video description below. And thanks again to Torras for sponsoring this portion of the video. This may or may not be a deal breaker for you, but I want to talk about this single camera. I took both the iPhone Air and iPhone 17 Pro out on a nice little fun trip to Seattle and Mount Rainier National Park in Washington State. And I found that the pictures that the phone took to be great considering its limitations. The one camera that it does have is fantastic. It's the same camera that the other iPhone 17s have. The problem is that it's missing cameras. There's no 0.5 ultra wide, so you can't take 0.5 selfies or macro shots, and no telephoto, so you can't zoom and get good details like with the iPhone 17 Pro. The missing telephoto camera is such a shame because this could mean the difference between shooting a nice picture of your family at someone's graduation, during sports games, or shooting a good picture of animals during a scenic hike versus a blurry mess on the regular camera because it just can't reach as far. The ultra-wide missing is also a shame, but at least with the new front-facing center stage camera, you still get some great selfies that way. Okay, what does center stage even mean when it comes to these iPhones though? This is just Apple's version of auto framing. This is a feature that you've probably seen on a bunch of newer webcams these days where the camera searches for faces and moves automatically to get everyone in the shot. They made this possible on the iPhone 17 series with some software tweaks and by making the sensor on the front square. What this does is that both vertical and horizontal photos and videos are now possible no matter how you hold your phone. You can also now shoot in landscape or portrait mode with center stage for automatic framing. It's a neat little trick that just makes taking front-facing photos and videos a lot easier for everyone involved so that no one gets left out in your group activities. It's much appreciated and honestly, might be the best feature they implemented this year for regular everyday people across the entire lineup. Okay, so battery life. It has a smaller battery than every other model, and Apple announcing a battery pack made specifically for the iPhone Air would seem like they have no faith in its battery life. On paper, the iPhone Air is supposed to match the iPhone 16 Pro, and honestly, from just a week of using the iPhone Air, I'd say it's definitely close, but not quite at the level of my old 16 Pro. My iPhone 16 Pro would normally be at around 25 to 35% battery at the end of a day of usage. This is with the battery that said it was at 96% capacity. And with the iPhone Air, brand new with a fresh battery, I've been sitting at roughly that much battery at the end of the day too. The screen time app says I spend on average around 4 hours a day on my phone, but I'm a pretty light user. I don't often play games on my phone, and it's mainly for messaging, calls, doom scrolling, and video watching. So if you do anything more intense than that, like playing games, I'm sure this thing will sip power much faster. Even during the harshest day of my trip to Washington, the travel day where I shot all the shots that you see here, used the Air to finally watch Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood on the plane, great show by the way, I'm just 15 years late, and used the Air to navigate around the Seattle area, eat dinner with some local friends, and make our way to our hotel. At the end of it, it was at around 10% battery left. Not bad for a 17-hour day with over 6 hours of screen time. The only day it really struggled was when we tried to use it to navigate our hike for 4 hours on all trails. It drained very quickly there. I also understand why people were very skeptical of this device, and rightfully so. I think for the average person though, the battery is good enough, but in about 2 or 3 years, as the battery degrades, I may feel completely different. Okay, let's talk about that special battery bank Apple made specifically for the iPhone Air. If you have to create an external battery made specifically for a single new product that you just released, you most likely don't have that much confidence in the battery life of that device day to day. If they marketed the battery more so for the entire iPhone 17 lineup, I think our opinions on this phone's battery life, or our initial skepticism, would be a lot different. Because right now, all this really does is remind me of the old one that they used to make for the iPhone minis. I was a huge fan of the iPhone minis, but the battery life on those weren't the absolute best considering how small they were. And number two, the cost of the battery is very pricey at $100 US. You can easily find slim G2 battery packs for half the price of that are similarly sized and have broader compatibility with other devices, not just the iPhone Air. I will say that that battery pack does have 3 benefits to it though. If it's perfectly for the iPhone Air, and really nothing else though, it trickle charges so it doesn't get as warm as those third-party G2 battery packs. And 3, you get smart behavior, meaning you get battery charge indicators on the phone and it just knows when it's supposed to charge your phone. So there are some cool things about it, but it's up to you to decide if it's 2 times the price worth as cool. Okay, so Apple squeezed an A19 Pro chip into the iPhone Air. This is the same chip that you can find on the 17 Pros, but they just removed a single GPU core from it. In day-to-day usage, you won't feel the difference at all. The phone is smooth, everything works as expected. It feels like a new iPhone. Where it does struggle is more intensive tasks like games, but not for the reason that you'd think. The chip is fast enough to handle some of the more demanding games on mobile. I haven't played the game in a while, but I had Genshin Impact running on high settings at 60 frames per second just fine. What I didn't like is how warm it got. Since all the main components are housed around the camera plateau and a little bit below it, that area, especially on the front, gets very warm while gaming. This is also the prime area where your left thumb usually sits for on-screen joysticks, so you can definitely feel the temperature when you're playing games. So I played Genshin Impact for a good 30 minutes, and during that time, I didn't really notice any throttling, despite it actually getting pretty warm in that area. But I really wonder, could this realistically be sustainable on such a thin phone? Because I really don't know. So yeah, just some interesting things to keep in mind about how this performs and how warm the phone gets up top. Okay, so with everything that I know now, is this phone what I dreamt of? What I imagined I wanted to see in a less heavy phone? Sorta. Well, when you look at this thing on paper, the iPhone Air is obviously missing features, even when compared to the regular iPhone 17. But I think this is more than that. See, starting with the 12 series, Apple tried selling mini phones. These were miniature versions of their main phone, just with smaller batteries. And they're what started me on this lightweight phone journey in the first place. But sales for those things sucked. Then, with the 14 series, Apple switched to releasing plus-sized phones. These were just their regular phone series, but with a bigger screen and battery. That also didn't sell to their expectations. So with the Air, I think Apple said, why not both? Let's slap what everyone liked about both the mini phones and the plus phones, giving them a lightweight package, but with a large display. But Apple removed some features that we've come to expect as standard to meet those goals. And for the average person, if you're looking for something lighter, I think this is a great phone. But there are a lot of reasons to look at this and wonder, why would they make a thin phone in the first place? Is it really just to lower the weight of the iPhone? And if that's the case, why is this named the iPhone Air and not the iPhone 17 Air? The Mini and Plus phones were both numbered just like all the other phones in that lineup for that year. Like, is this gonna be just a one-off device? Or is this a stepping stone to a whole new device? There's so many question marks about this phone, and rumors are already pointing this phone to potentially being basically one half of an Apple foldable phone. Okay, enough with the theories and conspiracies. Let's move back to the present now. Should I get this phone, or shouldn't you get this phone? So if your main concern when buying a phone is sheer value, the regular iPhone 17 is just so good. It's the best value in the entire lineup. Apple finally decided to give the 120Hz ProMotion display to the non-Pro iPhone models. And I think that finally tips the scale for the stragglers who couldn't live without high refresh rate displays to save a little bit of their money and just get the base iPhone. The Air is more if you're the type of person who wants the core iPhone experience in a much slimmer, even prettier package. And for some, that's gonna be a huge deal. And for others, you're gonna look at the specs at this thing and scoff at the reduced functionality and just buy a different one. As for me, I actually really like the iPhone Air. It's an eye-catching phone. Sure, there are some compromises, and if you just showed me a spec sheet on everything about this phone, I probably wouldn't even give it a second glance. But there's just something so cool about using a phone that's so thin and light. Even if you're not thinking about getting this phone, I do think this is one that you should check out in person just to see how weird it is holding such a thin and light phone. I think I'm ready to make this my main device now. I really want to see how the battery lasts after 2 to 3 years. But I gotta make a video on the iPhone 17 Pro first. So I'll be dailying that for a bit, and then afterwards, I'm coming for this. But I wanna know, what do you personally think? Is the iPhone Air something that you're trying to upgrade to? Do you think that you'd prefer the thinness and weight savings over something like the more budget-friendly and more value-oriented iPhone 17? Or are you a ride or die with the Pro? I think the Air stands out so much this year in this lineup, even though the Pros was the one that really got a design language change. Let me know down in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.